Welcome back to GMP Scenario, presented by PharmaContentLabs.com, where we break down common GMP mistakes, inspection risks, and the small control gaps that turn into big observations.
Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going to tackle something that is absolutely critical in any GMP environment: validation documentation. And look, this isn't just about shuffling papers, it's about proving control. We're going to explore why the difference between just showing your intent versus actually proving control can literally make or break your compliance. So I want to kick things off with a story. It's about a document that, on the surface looked perfect. I mean, it was professional, well-formatted, everything you'd hope to see. But hiding just underneath that shiny surface was a massive, fundamental failure. And this kind of scenario, it happens a lot more often than any of us would like to admit. It's a really dangerous trap, where we mistake a good-looking presentation for actual substance. And in the world of GMP, believe me, that's a mistake that can have some pretty serious consequences. Okay, so picture this. Your QA team gets a brand new validation report. It lands on their desk, and that first impression is fantastic. It's super well organized, looks completely professional, and, at a quick glance, it seems like every box is ticked. You kind of breathe that little sigh of relief. But then the real review starts. And that's when the cracks begin to show. You realize the acceptance criteria, the actual definition of what success even means, they're just not there. And sure, deviations are listed, but with zero analysis of what impact they had. And maybe worst of all, when the team tries to trace a result back to its source, the raw data references are just a complete tangled mess. All of these different problems, they all boil down to one single make-or-break question. This is the absolute acid test for any piece of validation documentation. Can you draw a clear, straight, unbroken line from every single requirement all the way to the objective evidence that proves it was actually met? And the answer, in this case, was a simple, stark, and absolutely devastating no. And with that one little word, the entire validation effort, no matter how many hours or how much work went into it, was, for all intents and purposes, a failure. So this brings us right to the heart of the matter. See, that document didn't fail because the team had bad intentions, of course not. It failed because it couldn't prove control. So let's really dig into what that means. Let's just compare these two. On one hand, you have intent. That's what you planned to do. It's what you hoped would happen. It's pretty easy to write down. But on the other hand, you've got evidence, and that is the cold, hard, verifiable proof of what you actually did. It has to be traceable, it has to be defensible, and honestly, it takes some serious discipline to create. One is just a story, the other is a legal record. Under GMP, the expectation is crystal clear. Your documentation isn't just a quick summary, it's got to be a complete story backed up by facts. It has to clearly show four things. 1, what was required. 2, how was it tested. 3, what actually happened. And 4, what was concluded based on that evidence. So here's the bottom line. If you can't connect those 4 elements with perfect, clear traceability, it's not a minor problem. It's not an area for improvement. It is, by definition, a documentation failure. Period. Full stop. Okay, so we've established it's a failure, but why does this matter so much? Well, because when an inspector or an auditor walks through your door, your documentation is very often the first thing they're going to see. I really want you to let this quote sink in for a second. An inspector doesn't just see a report, they see a reflection of your entire organization's commitment to quality and control. A sloppy, untraceable report immediately suggests a sloppy, uncontrolled process. It sets a really negative tone for the whole audit before they've even stepped foot in your facility. All right, enough about the problem. Let's talk solutions. The good news here is that building robust, traceable documentation isn't some kind of black magic. It's a structured process. So how do we actually build that solid, defensible foundation? Let's walk through it. Really, it all comes down to these 3 fundamental steps. First, you have to start with crystal clear requirements. No ambiguity. Define exactly what the system is for, what its boundaries are, and who's responsible for what. Second, you define your test strategy before you even think about starting to test. This means objective, measurable acceptance criteria. And finally, step 3, the report ties it all together, explicitly linking every result, every deviation, and every conclusion right back to those original requirements.
Okay, so to help put that framework into practice, let's look at the key documents, the actual artifacts that you need to tell this complete, traceable story. You can think of this as your essential checklist.
I want you to think of your documentation as an unbreakable chain. It starts with a solid plan, it clearly defines what the user needs, and it outlines the exact test protocols. Every single link in that chain, from the raw data to the deviation logs all the way to the traceability matrix, it has to be solid. It all leads up to that final, approved report that proves the entire process was controlled from beginning to end. If you break just one of those links, the whole chain fails. So as we wrap this up, I want to leave you with this one thought to take back to your own work. Go look at your last validation report and ask yourself, is it just a beautifully formatted document that describes what you intended to do? Or is it a fortress of evidence, a clear and defensible record that proves beyond any doubt that your process is completely under control? The answer to that question? Well, it makes all the difference.
If this helped, like and subscribe.